guys, what is up? This is the ViperStealth, and in this video, as you've seen, we're going to cover one of my favourite PvP builds. It is the famous Clutch build. So as you saw from my intro video, you saw my armour going down, but you saw that I didn't run away and put on an armour kit. Just to explain what's going on there to anyone new to a Clutch build, the idea is you have as little armour as possible, as much health as possible, and actually the more armour you lose, the more powerful your build becomes. So I will explain this in a little bit more detail as I go through the build, but if you do enjoy this video and you find it useful, please give me a like and comment your thoughts. Share it with anyone that you think might be interested or is looking to improve their PvP game. But let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's crack straight into it. So first thing I'm going to cover is the primary weapon. So a good primary weapon for this build is the famous 2010, so the famous 2010. I've got the Strained and Allegro talents on this. So Strained is you get 5% more critical hit damage for every 10% of your armor that is depleted. This is one of the reasons why we want our armor to be as low as possible, so we get access to that extra critical hit damage as soon as possible. You've got that, you've also got Allegro here, which is 10% rate of fire, so my rate of fire is 990, which is pretty high for any weapon. For an assault rifle it's even better. And then lastly I've got Zen. Zen's not important, it's just something that I've got on there. What I recommend when trying to get this gun is just going to the crafting bench. This is a weapon that you can craft, so keep crafting it until you get a max roll for damage and decent talents, and then just recalibrate the right talent onto the gun, whether that be Strained or whether that be Allegro. So that's your main weapon. On your secondary, I'm going to cover this later on when I go into the talents of the builds a little bit, but I've got Merciless on my secondary, I'll explain why later. And on my sidearm I've got a weapon with stop, drop and roll. Just to be cheeky, I've also got Strained on there, but it's very unlikely that I'm going to need to use the pistol. I've got stop, drop and roll so that if anyone sets me on fire I can just roll and that disappears. So it can be very useful to consider your sidearm ability as well. By the way, when you see when equipped, that means it's just got to be in your loadout, you don't need to have it in your hand. So as long as it is in my build, I always get access to that talent, so that does count even if I've got the FAMAS in my hands. Let's cover the pieces now. So the general idea of a Clutch build, as I mentioned earlier on, is to get your health as high as possible. So you can see I've got 288.9, that's really high for a Clutch build, and I've got 190 armor, which is quite low to some of the builds that you're probably used to. This is a good thing for a Clutch build. The idea is to get rid of the armor as quickly as possible, and we've got a talent here which is Berserk, so you get 8% weapon damage for every 20% of your armor that's depleted. So that's another reason why we want the armor to be gone as soon as possible. We've got Fenris here, so the Fenris bonus is the 10% assault rifle damage. That is beneficial because I'm using an assault rifle. You do want 2 pieces of Providence. I've gone for a bag and I've gone for knees. So on the bag you get skill power 10%, and when you have a second one you get health 8%, so you get 8% extra health. On the mask I've gone for Murakami, and Murakami gives you 8% extra health. And then I've got the Perfect Clutch gloves, which give you crazy amounts of heal. I'll cover talents later on, but you get a little bit of protection from elites. We don't choose this because of the brand bonus, we choose it because of the talent, which can't change, so that's not too important, but the Perfect Clutch is. And then Gila, even though we get 5% total armor, and I know we don't want total armor, but Gila holster is very good because you can put really high health onto it, good decent critical hit chance, and also the it comes with 2 offensive mod slots, which is great for racking up some more damage. So those are the brand pieces we're going to go for this build. Moving on from the actual pieces, let's talk about the talents and how the talents work. So possibly one of the least important talents on the build is the mask, in my opinion. With the mask you're happy with one of 3 talents. You can go for Insulated, which is hazard protection. You can go for Dialed In, which gives you 15% extra weapon stability, or you can go for Concussion, and Concussion gives you bigger headshot damage when you hit on the head. So my favourite is probably Concussion out of the 3 of those, but if you get Insulated, Dialed In or Concussion, you're absolutely fine. What you do want to make sure you get though is critical hit chance landing on the Murakami mask, and then just recalibrating as much health as possible onto the mask, so that way you've got a decent amount of critical hit chance and health on there as well. On the vest, you want to rack up as much health as possible. I've got a 60,000 health piece here on the vest, and also a couple of attributes that you should be looking for is critical hit chance and critical hit damage. We want the critical hits to be as high as possible for both. The critical hit chance maxes out at 60. The damage, there is no limit, so well, there's no hard cap limit. So let's bear in mind that you do want to get damage up as high as possible, but let's not keep going. I'll explain a little bit later how far you want to go with that. And on the talents, I've gone for Berserk and Restorative, so when I kill someone I get 30% extra health, which is very handy seeing as my health is very high. On the Gila, we've gone for health, as you saw a second ago, loads of health in that, and I farmed a Gila that's got really high critical hit chance dropping as a base stat, so we got 11% there. The other attribute was rubbish, but that's not a problem. I took it back to the White House, slapped on a 44,000 health onto it, and we're happy with that. As mentioned earlier on, Gila comes with 2 offensive mod slots, but I'll cover mod slots later. The bag, this was quite hard to find, I got given it by a pal. What you're looking for here is crit chance, crit damage, and you're going to roll health onto it. So health, anything over kind of 35,000, 40,000 is very good. So we've got 42,500 on there, and then we've got Spark and Vital. So Vital gives me 25% extra health on the whole build, which is nice, and Spark, damaging enemies with skills or explosives, grant 15% extra weapon damage for 15 seconds. Now this is quite important, so all I need to do is hit an enemy with a skill or an explosive damage. So this is the reason why I have the Merciless on the build, because the Merciless, while you're shooting, you do the explosive damage. So here we've got, while holstered, landing a shot, 5% chance to deal 100% damage as explosive damage. So when I unload a whole clip of my primary into an enemy, it's going to proc Spark, and Spark gives me a pretty substantial 15% extra weapon damage, so that's why we go for Spark on this piece. We've got another mod there which is offensive, and that helps you get up more weapon damage. With the 511 gloves, try and find perfect clutch gloves that land with critical hit chance already on them. Once you've got that, you can recalibrate some assault rifle damage onto it. So I've gone for 12%. You can get up to 13% assault rifle damage. I can't on this piece, however. I've fully recalibrated this. I can't get 1% more on this, so I've kept it to 12% because I can't change it. But you can, let's say for example, a 3.5% critical hit chance drop for you, you can probably get it up to 13% assault rifle damage. There's no offensive mod slots on this or anything. It does come with perfect clutch, and perfect clutch is critical hits restore 25% of your missing health and repair 2% missing armor. So this is why, if you've ever been in the Dark Zone of Conflict and you're shooting at someone and their health is really, it seems to be really low, and they're just not dying, they're probably running a clutch build where every critical hit that they're landing, it's repairing 25% of their health. And then lastly, on the knees, we want to make sure that we've got a decent amount of critical hit chance, so I've gone for 9% there, and I've gone for 40% explosive damage in the form of destructive, because the explosive damage is coming from the Nemesis while it's holstered, and I'm shooting the FAMAS. So while I'm shooting the FAMAS, occasionally you're going to get an explosive bullet landing because of the Merciless holstered here, and because you've got destructive, it's going to be doing more damage. So that's a good thing to consider on your build. Destructive is very useful for those kind of fragging moments when that explosive damage does land. And then of course we get another mod slot. So those are the talents on the build. The real synergy in this build, it's kind of 4 things. You want really high health, you want very high critical hit chance, and you need clutch and you need berserk. If you have those, you're laughing, because berserk, low armor, you're doing more damage. Clutch, every crit you're landing, you're restoring your health. The more health you have, the more you get restored. It's all kind of synergizing with each other. So let's talk about the mods. As I mentioned, you do want critical hit chance to be as high as possible in this build. It caps out at 60, and then once you've hit that cap, you want to spec into weapon damage and to critical hit damage. So what I did do when I was working on this build in the beginning was, when I was at I don't know, 50% chance, I was using some of the mods for critical hit chance, and that's a useful thing to do if you're not capped out. Once you are capped out at 60%, because you're starting to get good rolls on your pieces, then you can start recalibrating the mods into damage. So I've gone for like 6% damage here, so 5% assault rifle, 1% weapon damage, that's 6%. On my holster you can see much the same story, we've got 6% as well. So there's lots of decent damage here applying to the gun. We've got assault rifle damage there, 5%, and then weapon damage 0.5, so that's 5.5%. And then lastly on the bag, we've got 6% there, 4% assault rifle damage, 2% weapon damage. So my FAMAS is hitting at a base of 19.4, and that's really good. If you're hitting headshots, it goes up even higher, and then the damage goes up even higher once Berserk kicks in when your armor goes down really low. So those are the mods. Now all of mine are spec towards weapon damage, but until you get to the stage that I've got this clutch build at, you can just spec into critical hit chance and critical hit damage to find those mods, and they should help you. So next up is skills and grenade. The skills and grenade I go for, I'll cover the grenade first because it's a bit of a no-brainer, but because we've got destructive, we want to go for the standard concussion grenade. The reason why is because the explosive destructive talent affects the concussion grenade, and it will hit harder than your other option, which is the demolition fragmentation grenade. It is quite nice because it sets a bleed status, but it hits almost a quarter of the damage. So really, you want to go for a concussion grenade to hit almost 500,000 on PvE stats. On your skills, you want to go for the booster hive. So the booster hive, once you put it down, one of the little ticks will go into you and you'll speed up. This allows you just to run around. So maybe you're reloading and you don't want the enemy to shoot at you, and while you're reloading you just run around for a little bit, and then when you've got the full clip in your gun, you can stand still and just beam on their head. The idea of boost is you can run away quickly if you need to. Let's say you're outnumbered, you can drop the booster hive and you can get out of there quickly. Don't forget to destroy the booster hive once you've been boosted, because it saves it, and if you're running away you can use it again. Or if you're in battle, it just helps you zigzag in and out of bullets and just keep alive. So go for the booster hive. Next up, we go for the defender drone, and the reason why we go for the defender drone is most of the time that you die with this build, it will be because you're reloading. So what I do is, I'll cover the playstyle a tiny bit later, but one of the things that we do with the defender drone is we use it while you're reloading, but I'll cover that in more detail later on. So let's show you the stats page of what I'm working with here. So you can see on this screen I've got 60% critical hit chance and I've got 42% critical hit damage. So these are very respectable figures. I could get the critical hit damage up even higher if I wanted to through the use of mods, but there's no point. I've got them all spec'd in towards weapon damage, so a nice healthy blend of all of them is what you're going for. You do need 60% critical hit chance, because the higher your critical hit chance, the better your healing will be. So a couple of things that you can do to benefit your healing is have 60% critical hit chance. You want to have Allegro instead of like 20% extra magazine capacity. You want Allegro because the faster your bullets fire, the more crits you'll have per second, and the more crits you have, the more healing you'll have. So do make sure you go for Allegro. That's important as well. So there you can see my critical hit damage and critical hit chance. As I mentioned, get 60% chance, then try and get as high as possible for critical hit damage and weapon damage. Go for them equally, it's not a problem. So now we cover the stats page, I'm going to talk about the playstyle of this, and I'm also going to show you a different variant that one of my clanmates has shown me. So the playstyle with this build, do not take this build against a group of people. There's very few builds in PvP that can work against a group. The clutch build is not one of them. If you go 1 against 2 with a clutch build, you'll most definitely die. What you want to do is when you're in your team against another team, you want to see one guy that's kind of breaking away from the pack on their team, and you want to go for that guy. And if you go for that guy and he stays on his own and he tries to fight you on his own, he's going to lose, because your healing from your clutch and your Allegro and your critical hits will keep you up and they'll go down. So try to keep to that playstyle. Don't go forward when there's a load of people in front of you, because you'll get teamed up on and you won't heal fast enough to counteract 2 or 3 or more people shooting at you. So do try and keep smart about the engagements that you take on. Bloodsucker is effective against the critical hit build. So with Bloodsucker, you get, I think, 25% bonus armor back when you deplete an enemy's armor. Because our armor is so low, those builds will deplete your armor lots. The max stack, I think, is 6 on Bloodsucker. So while you're trying to do damage to them, they're just going to be getting armor and armor and armor, and they're probably going to kill you before you can do anything, in terms of real big damage to them. So you've got to be wise. If you see someone having a fight with someone and their armor keeps going up as they break a teammate's armor, you know they've got Bloodsucker. So just try not to 1v1 those guys, because they're going to get the best of you. Try and go for a different teammate on their team who's broken away from the pack. So try not to fight Bloodsucker builds with this. And the other thing I want to talk to you about is a variant of this build. So this is probably one of the strongest crit builds I've seen in the Dark Zone. Normally people will have all the same pieces, but they just won't have the health as high as 288.9, or they won't have all the same pieces and still the health won't be that high. A lot of people go for Wyvern. Some people go for DNH in terms of brand sets. These aren't bad options, but I wouldn't say it's as strong as this, because you get a bigger base health pool, and the more health you have, the more health you'll be recovering with Clutch and Allegro and all your critical hit chances. So I do recommend this rather than Wyvern and DNH, but a variant of this build which is pretty good. Let me get it set up for you now. So the idea is double LMGs basically. So let me show you what's going on. What we're going to do is put on all of these guns. We're going to put a Petrov mask on, and I'll show you the different variant now. And we are going to go for mind blank. There we go. So this is a variant LMG build, which is a critical hit chance. I'm going to just put the. There we go. So shout out to Golden Glocks for this one, but this is incredibly effective in 1v1s. It still can be used in the team fights, but I don't know. I doubt its effectiveness compared to the assault rifle. But if you're doing 1v1s, this is a really nice build to have. So the idea here is, as you saw, it's pretty much the same. I just changed two pieces of gear, the mask and the gloves. I'll cover that in a second, but the idea with the guns is I've gone for double MG5s. The reason why MG5s is because they shoot very fast. I've gone for measured and Allegro. You want to make sure you've got Allegro on both guns. I've also gone for measured on both guns. I prefer measured to strained when it comes to LMGs, but by all means experiment and choose what you want on your own. I've gone for stop, drop and roll, and I'd probably also change the pistol to something like protected reload, because these are LMGs. You're going to want some sort of health or armor while you're reloading them if you do need to reload. We've got on the mask, we've got Petrov Defense Group, which gives you 10% LMG damage. Do try and get one that drops with some critical hit chance, and then you just roll on some health onto the mask. You've got concussion there, which I mentioned briefly earlier on, so headshots grant 15% headshot damage for 2 seconds. So that's incredibly useful if you are beaming someone. You can just shoot them in the head and do significantly more damage to them. And the gloves are not perfect clutch, but they are clutch, so they restore 20% missing health instead of 25%. And again, try to find some gloves that drop high in the critical hit chance, and then you can recalibrate 13% LMG damage onto those. So that's the idea of the LMG build. With both of these builds, whether you choose to go for the double LMG setup, the Golden Glocks taught me about, or whether you go for the single assault rifle build, do go for the demolitionist specialization. And the reason for this is the crisis response, which is when you lose your armor, it automatically fills in the ammo of one of your guns, so that way you can keep shooting when you lose your armor. You don't need to reload. If you get that with 2 of these guns, it can be, you can batter the enemy with all sorts of bullets. Do make sure though, if you do make the LMG version of this build, that you do swap out your mods. At the moment I've not swapped out these mods, so they're still assault rifle damage, so make sure that to do even more damage than the damage I've got here, which is just 16,000, put loads of 6s and 7% LMG mods in here just to hit really hard. But those are my builds for the critical hit chance. Just to show you what I'm working with here, I'm going to equip the assault rifle variant. We've got invulnerable here. The enemy's going to shoot you, so your armor is going to be really low. And I'll just take a bit more from me there.
Vital signs critical.
And just to show you, keep an eye on this DPS here. This is uncut, so you get an idea this isn't set up. So 1.2 million DPS that went up to, and by all means you can get more. You want to pop the drone when you are reloading to help yourself, and set the booster hive down so that when it boosts you, you can run around while you're reloading. That's the idea of this build. It's really straightforward, it's fun to play. When people think they've got you and you're really kind of low armor, they typically push you, and that's when you're at the most dangerous. So it's great fun build to play. If you've got any questions about the build, let me know in the comments. But if you enjoyed this, give me a like, and have a fantastic day. Thank you for watching.